For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love.
And what are some of the things that you've really
run out of time, and we've got to talk about your latest. I want to go back a little bit, first of all, and celebrate a true legend.
Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work.
And did you pursue performing opportunities while you were in high school?
Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is all about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists, celebrating whatever it is that you choose to celebrate today. Today is Celebrate National Chocolate Day. Today is also National Pizza Pie Day, and it's National Read in the Bathtub Day. And I hope that if any of you are watching this in the bathtub right now, that you're being very careful. I am also celebrating tonight a very special man, and that's Ronald Rand. He has been performing for so many years as Harold Clurman. And we are going to delve into the life of Harold Clurman, Ronald Rand, and the fact that he has this incredible new book out, Solo Transformation on Stage. Those of you who know me know that for over 20 years, I performed all over the world as Carol Channing. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to transform into another artist on stage. Just before the pandemic hit, I had created a new show called The Magic of Believing, which tells the story of my growing up in my hometown of Conway, South Carolina, and coming to New York to pursue a career as an actor. But this man, Ronald, has created this incredible world of not only solo performance, but he walks the walk, he talks the talk. When he is not on stage himself doing it, he is sharing this gift with so many other people, and we are the better for it. Before I bring him on, I'm going to give you just a brief glimpse into his world, and then we're going to delve into everything that makes him special. We're going to celebrate his body of worth tonight, and I am so excited that he is here tonight. Here he is, Ronald Rand.
Stella and I are on our way home, and it's just by chance. We stop off in Paris. We have the unbelievably good fortune of finding out Stanislavski's also in town. Well, I tell Stella we've got to meet him. An appointment's arranged. Well, when we arrive, he sees Stella with me, and he rises to this great height. He must have been 6'4", wrinkly, handsome, with beautiful snow-white hair, has a throaty, deep baritone of a voice, has a decided appeal for Stella, because her father had also been majestically tall with beautiful white hair. Ah, he says, the daughter of Jacob Adler has come to see me. I look at Stella. She just stands there. Go over, shake his hand. No, I mustn't. Finally, Stanislavski introduces himself with a bow. Young lady, everyone has spoken, but you. Still nothing. I swear you could have heard a pin drop. Finally, Stella blurts out, Mr. Stanislavski, before I studied your system, I loved the theater. Now I hate it. I want to melt in the ground right then and there, but all Stanislavski does is blink, and very calmly he says, well, my dear, if it's not working for you, forget it. Which made a lot of sense to me. Well, when I get the chance, and I know it's probably tactless of me, I ask him about his relationship with Stalin. He looks around for a moment. Very quietly he says, he's not stupid. He looks around again. chance. There are things going on. Then he doesn't say anything else. The last thing I hear him say impresses me the most. After all my years of studying and working in the theater, I've come to the conclusion that I know nothing about it. Which meant to me that no matter how many attempts to seize the essence of an art, it always remains mysterious. One thing's for certain, we get back, the summer's going to be a doozy. Well, as soon as we arrive back, all the actors assemble in front of Miss Stella. She very bluntly announces, everything everyone's been doing is wrong. Naturally, the ground shakes, the bungalows bounce, everyone's conveniently in uproar. Stanislavski no longer determines that we study the play by studying our past. He now determines we must study the given circumstances of the play and justify everything we do. Well, Strasbourg, upon hearing this, I don't care what he says, he's going back on himself. Stella, I deny what he's told me. Strasbourg screams, I never said I teach the Stanislavski system. I teach what I teach. So Stella taught what she taught. And frankly, that's all anyone can do. You can have a million techniques up the wazoo. Ultimately, it comes down to what you believe. You have to decide for yourself what's valuable. Because in the long run, you're judged by how well you contribute to everyone's human needs, everyone's moral concerns. And if you wonder what the theater is like today, I'll tell you. It's mediocre. It has been for a while. Why? It's because people in the theater are afraid to move this way or that way. They're afraid to progress. They're afraid to be wrong. They're afraid to take a chance. They're afraid to have courage.
Oh, that's incredible. Let it be art. How are you?
I'm great, Richard. It's such a delight to see you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
That you are here tonight. And first of all, I want to ask you, incredible book, by the way, great interviews with some of the greatest artists in the business, including yourself. Well, and I want to ask you, in addition to celebrating solo art, which I love, as you know, what are you celebrating today?
Well, I've been continuing to celebrate this book every single day since it's come out. It's been an amazing gift, which I never thought to do. Mm-hmm. And so I've been reaching out to several wonderful people across the country, letting them know about it. Yeah. And it's just been an amazing gift to be able to share a solo transformation and what it means to me. And also to be able to talk about it with you, which is also a celebration in itself. And I look upon it as an extension of what I've devoted my life to every single day, because I believe that we have a gift that's been given to us. And how do we go about giving it? Well, we've certainly been living through a very trying period of time. And fortunately, we're slowly coming out of it. But now I've been given a chance now to continue, after 20 years, to continue bringing Let It Be Art to more people around the world. This past summer, I was in Athens, Greece with the show. And now I just heard last night there's a possibility of another production that I'll be doing up in the Northeast in New Jersey. And then upcoming, I'm going to be taking the show to Iceland. And it's just an astounding opportunity to share the passion that Harold Clurman has brought to the American theater, but also the life-affirming qualities which we all represent as human beings.
And I'm going to give a news item today. I'm going to be playing you while you're playing Harold Clurman. Now that would be a feat. I have this wonderful game called Be Best, and I start my shows with this because there's an icebreaker game. And I pull a random question before I start the show. Oh. I don't even know what the question is.
Okay.
So it puts us both on our toes. So here we go. I don't know what the question is. Okay. And the question is, it was upside down. What's the best compliment that you have ever received in your profession? That's a great way to start.
Well, I think because I bring Harold Clurman to life, when people forget or don't realize that I'm not Harold Clurman and that I'm Ronald Rand, and at the end of the show, or even when I start talking, I always do a Q&A at the end of the show, and even before that, I go out and shake hands with every single person in the audience. Sometimes they don't realize that there's someone else bringing Harold Clurman to life, which actually happened, of all places, in Harare, in Zimbabwe. And people were shocked to realize that when they heard my regular voice, that there was somebody else. And I'll have to tell you more about it, but that is one of the greatest compliments.
Well, I love in the book when you say that sometimes somebody may say when you're playing around the world, which you have done so many times, that there's always that possibility of someone saying, well, what if they don't know who Harold Clurman is in a certain area? It doesn't matter because of the universality of, did I just make up a word? Yes, around the world of what you bring and what was his humanity.
Yeah.
And that's what the theater is all about. It's the humanity of shared experiences. And this man, not only in his own life experiences, but that's what it was all about in terms of the theater that he created on stage, both on and off stage.
It's true. It's true. I mean, he founded the group theater with Lee Strasberg and Cheryl Crawford because they wanted to create a theater that spoke to the humanness and to the truth of what was happening in society, and also give the audience a chance to see actual life happening in front of them, which was one of the greatest challenges. And that's one of the beautiful gifts that I have discovered when I brought and bring Harold Clurman to audiences around the world who, of course, in Colombia or in Russia or where I just was in Sri Lanka, who really don't know anything about Harold Clurman, except they may get something in their hands before the show starts and they read about him. But once they meet the man and once they feel his passion and his energy and his common sense about what it takes to really open your eyes to see life for what it is and to live life to the fullest, they just go on the train with him and it's full steam ahead and he never stops. He has so much energy. And that's one of the things that I have to give myself over before the performance, because my preparation is, of course, 2 hours long or more. And as I immerse myself into the world and allow Harold Clurman to, for want of a better phrase, enter me and allow him to live and express what he's come to express, that's what really excites the audience the most.
I want to talk about preparation, and I want to talk about long-term preparation. And I'm going to go back further, I think, possibly, maybe not, than anyone who's possibly interviewed you on this book. This is how far back I want to go. Am I correct?
Yes, that's quite a few days back there. Yes.
So
that's me.
that's you.
Yes.
So I want to ask about this kid. Tell us, where you were from originally, and about your childhood.
Sure.
And did you grow up in an arts-filled home?
Well, the funny thing is yes, my father, even though he was a lawyer and a professional tennis player, but he had a great love and passion for the theater when he studied at the University of Miami, and secretly always wanted to act, which I subsequently found. And so, in a sense, he lived through me, seeing me on stage. My mother, on the other hand, was an art teacher and is 95, God bless her.
God bless her.
And continues to paint up into this day, and is very expressive and full of verve and full smile, and recites poetry even to today. So yes, I got that kind of energy growing up, and I was one of those kids that ran around with so much energy they could not contain me anywhere. I was drawing on the walls, and my mother, of course, put a paintbrush in my hand when I was probably about 1 or 2, and I painted on everything I could find. And then I started imitating everyone. So by the time I was 4 or 5 years old, they didn't know what to do with me. So they had to put me into, with a drama teacher, into a school which she had a stage in her house. And so every weekend I would go and recite Shakespeare, and we'd sit around a long table I was there with all these children, and then we'd get up and do improvisations. And so it was a dream come true. And it actually was one of those revelatory moments that people have in their lives. And one of these improvisations, I actually, you put your hand in a bowl and you take out, a word, and there's 2 other young children with you, and you create a little improvisation. Well, this improvisation had to do with a princess and a necklace that was disappeared. And all of a sudden, one of the students turned to me and said, "You took it." And I stood there completely in amazement. And I thought the whole world had fallen on top of me. And immediately I began defending myself, saying, "I never took it. I don't have it." And all these words spewed out of me. And eventually I was a puddle of tears. And so her name was Mrs. Brazo. The teacher came over and hugged me and calmed me down and said, "It's okay. You didn't take it. But I have to tell you, what you're doing is what they call acting. And it's real, and you felt it." And from that moment on, I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. So I continued doing that day in and day out. And eventually I joined a professional children's theater from about 7 or 8 up until the time I went to study with Stella Adler in New York City. And so I was doing 250, 300 shows. Oh, there's Stella.
Oh my God. I want to tell you how, envious I am. Tell us about the experience. First of all, I want to go back for a moment because
Yes.
You talked about going to this playhouse, and having this theater in her home, essentially.
Yes.
I had the same thing. I had a mentor in my hometown, Miss Theodora Florence Epps. In my hometown of Conway, South Carolina. She had a little playhouse in her backyard. And on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I went to her home, and it was just me and her. And we read from the classics. We read classics. And with her, she instilled in me the importance of all of these great people that went before me. And I think that you and I share that the importance of all of these people and what they bring to the table, and how important it is for us to remember who these people are. And you have them through the pages of this book, paragraph after paragraph, where you rattle off these names. And as I'm reading the book, it's just so exciting to see their names again. But then you come to New York and you study with one of the greatest acting teachers around. Was that preordained for you to study with Stella Adler? Was that already planned for you when you came to New York, or how did that come about?
Well, from the time I think in 7th or 8th grade, I began reading about the group theater, and I began studying about Harold Clurman and Stella Adler. And when I found out that, of course, Stella Adler was still teaching, that was it. I knew I had to study with her. And when I was studying with Stella Adler, I found out Harold Clurman was teaching, and I ended up having to study with Harold, of course, which was unbelievable. But yes, and I had the most incredible experience. I did a lot of performing. I was in the first television, bilingual television show in Florida, even when I was in high school, called Que Pasa USA. And Stephen Bauer, he was known as Rocky Echeverria at that time, and I played one of his best friends. Even though I didn't speak a lot of Spanish, they still cast me. And I was sort of like the English best friend or American best friend. So I did a lot of television and a lot of theater, and I knew that I was going to go to New York to study with Stella Adler. And I actually ended up seeing a performance of Eartha Kitt. She had come down to perform on Miami Beach, and I went backstage to meet her. And I guess I told her I had to go to New York to study with Stella. And I said, I would like to ask you some questions about what it takes to have a career and a life in the theater and in the arts. And she said, listen, darling, why don't you come to my hotel room? My daughter's in town and I'll tell you all about it. And so I did. And I spent an hour with Eartha Kitt in her hotel room. And she just had her new book come out, and she autographed it for me. And she said, I'm going to tell you my life and everything that's happened to me. And I'm going to make sure you understand what it means to be an artist. And you're going to be studying with Stella. And so it just sort of launched me right, to the moon. And so that sort of said it, that's what I was going to do. And I was also blessed with an amazing drama teacher in Coral Gables High School who actually showed us films by Ilya Kazan and would get us up on stage doing Boleslavsky and Michael Chekhov exercises. So this was very intense. We were doing shows that were similar to off-Broadway productions already. And I was doing shows. Two of my students who were a year or two older than me was Nina Tassler, who of course became CEO, of CBS, and of course, and another one is Peter Jensen, who's now the lead teacher at Terry Schreiber Studio. So I mean, we were really pushed into the arts at a very early age.
It was as if it was almost as if a red carpet was being rolled out in front of you, and the right people were being placed in your path.
It was a miracle, yes, and you sort of are being guided, of course, by the ages and your angels all the time, as long as you're open and accepting to that. And it's always been that way for me. I do leave myself open, and I do accept what comes through the universe. And that's also part of my process, I have to be a very open vessel.
The word on my desk today, acceptance.
Ah, yes. I love it.
Polite. So, and I totally agree with everything that you're saying. I interviewed Davis Gaines a couple of months ago, and he said, when you go into this business, you can have a game plan, but it's once you are in the throes of this business, it's like being in a pinball machine. You're bandied around a lot. And I've used that analogy a lot. Yeah. Did you have a game plan as to the way that you wanted your career to unfold? Or were you finding that a lot of what was happening in terms of your career was based on the people that you were meeting and the circumstances along the way?
Well, as I had mentioned, I was extremely blessed to spend 5.5 years with Stella Adler. And after that, I mean, it just changed. It's life-changing, of course. And then to Harold Clurman as my teacher. And at the same time, Jerzy Grotowski came over from Poland and taught at Columbia University. And so his influence also was life-changing as well. And so I said my path was in the theater. But of course, it's very challenging to make a living in the theater. I was doing a lot of off-Broadway shows. Even when I was studying at NYU, I actually was fortunate to be in a production of Julius Caesar with Richard Dreyfuss and George Rose. Frank Dunlop had come over to do it at BAM, and they had invited college students to be like the ensemble, part of the ensemble, and they had auditions. And of course, as fortune would have it, during my audition, they ask you to say something, one of the great Shakespearean lines, and to run forward toward the table and stop right in front of Frank Dunlop. Well, I said my line, I ran forward, and I fell right on you know what. I picked myself up, and I said my line again, and I ran off. And I thought that was it. I'm never going to get this part. But I did get it. Because I continued and I didn't stop. And so I was doing shows, but as fortune would lead me, I realized that to make a living in New York City, you also had to do film, television, commercials, industrials. And so now my life took a different turn. And I began to study film and study television and take courses. And I eventually acted in hundreds of films and television shows and soap shows. And then I went in to do commercials and did so many commercials and industrials and traveled across America doing them. And then the most amazing thing happened. I said, I have to write
One
a
said you
full
actually broke a leg.
well, no, it was a sort of a revelation, you might say. I came to the decision that I had to write a full-length play about the group theater. And I had to bring Harold Clurman and Stella Adler and everyone alive. And so I took the
I want to
time.
back up for a moment, if you don't
Sure.
mind my interrupting.
No,
When
please.
you came to New York, did you
Yeah.
have any other connections in New York when you first arrived here? And can you give us a time frame of what year this was that you
Well,
arrived in New York?
Sure. This was in the 80s. And I was there, because I had gotten into Julius Caesar. The most amazing thing, of course, these cast parties, our cast party happened to be at Studio 54. At the time, it was at its zenith. So there was Israel Horowitz with Bianca Jagger and Andy Warhol, and it was the actual real Studio 54. I mean, this was the 80s really, happening. And
I
so,
sang at Israel Horowitz's birthday once,
oh my gosh, how wonderful. Well, I began to meet people and I began to get around and, work with a lot of agents and get to know casting directors. And so that led me on a path to do more film and to do more television and commercials and things like that. But when your love is theater, what do? You have to go and do shows in that black box theater, that off Broadway theater at night, and then go do the film and do the soap show. And so I was doing it all.
Now, did you ever have to do any survival jobs, or were you just very fortunate that you were always working in the business?
Well, I did waiting as a waiter in probably close to 75 soap shows. I even ended up having a part as a waiter in 6 Degrees of Separation with Donald Sutherland and Stockard Channing. And in one scene, because I never waited tables, they loaded me down with all these glasses. And I came in here and, Donald is such a sweetheart. I'm supposed to hand him the glass. And what does Donald do? He takes his hand and he moves it away from where my hand was. So I move my hand closer. He moves it further. And I'm holding about 10 glasses on this tray. And what do you think happens? Over goes the tray, all over everybody. And of course, John Guare comes up to me when everybody is dried out and he whispers in my ear. He wrote the screenplay. Do it exactly the same way again. And of course, the director says, if you do that, you'll never work in this town again. So, I mean, you just have these great experiences, and that's the way it kept unfolding. I mean, I ended up doing the pilot for Law and Order, the first show that was ever done. And I ended up doing probably close to 20 or 30 other Law and Orders over the years. Even one episode, I was a sketch artist, and I was, we have all this time on a set, and I'm, being an artist, I was sketching the whole scene. And the director came over and looked at it, and he said, we're going to start on this. And the whole episode began on my sketch. So you
never know. Absolutely. Well, when you were studying and you were in the presence of Harold Clurman, when did the seed pop into your head that this is something that I am going to take from there to there to there, meaning going to bringing it into bringing his life beyond being in the classroom to being in front of an audience through your body as a vessel?
Well, like I'd mentioned, I had written this full-length play. about the group theater. And I ended up doing probably close to 12 or 15 presentations, staged readings at the Neighborhood Playhouse, at the Actors Studio, at the Stella Adler Theater, at the Harold Clurman Theater, at the York Theater, all over New York City to try to get it produced off Broadway. Eventually, it was done at Northern Illinois University. But during those 10 years that I was working on the play and bringing and playing Harold Clurman, a seed was planted so that after the show was produced, someone said to me, you know, you really act like Harold Clurman. Have you ever thought of doing a show as him? And I thought, well, I don't know about that. So I wrote to Stella Adler and I asked her, I said, I'm thinking of the idea of doing a solo play as Harold Clurman. And she wrote back, oh, no, darling, nobody can play Harold. And then at the bottom, she said, P.S., but if you have to, go ahead. And so that sort of gave me some sort of permission. But the question was, what was I going to do? And of course, I began to look at my notes that I had taken in my classes with Harold, and I watched Harold in videos, and I read everything I get my hands on. And then I began interviewing people who had studied with him earlier on in his midnight classes, like Roy Scheider and Rue McClanahan, who eventually all came to see me in the show. And Elaine Stritch, who also came to see me and said to me, you know, you blew me away. You were Harold Clurman, which was just mind-boggling, of course. And so as time went on, I had all this information, and I said, well, is this really what the show is going to be? So I stopped and I put it down and I said, Harold, you're going to have to tell me, what do you want to say? And I began to listen, and I began to hear a direction in which to go in. And I began to write down what he was telling me. And I have to tell you a little sidebar. This is also, in a sense, how my opera, Ibsen, which is the first opera ever written about Henrik Ibsen, I wrote the libretto over a period of 3 months in the darkness, around 3 or 4 in the morning. I would hear words the same way. And I began to write them down in the darkness, never knowing in the morning if I could even read them. And that's how Ibsen came about, the same way. I listened and I heard what Ibsen wanted to say, and I listened and I heard Harold. But it's one thing to actually get these ideas and words from Harold Clurman. It's another thing to embody him. And that became one of the greatest challenges, you see.
What have you learned about yourself through the eyes of Harold Clurman as an actor? And I'm sure that even now you're probably learning, especially as you're getting older, that you didn't know as you were starting out in the beginning of your career.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look at life that all of us actually get younger, to tell you the truth. I feel that because the reason we get younger is that when I was taking care of my father, who also lived to 91, and he could barely hold a spoon, and I had to feed him. And so in a sense, we sort of get younger and we go the same direction back. So I look at life that way. And so I don't do numbers. I don't even know what my number is. I do away with all of that. And I look at Harold as this incredibly huge, almost childlike life force. And he's ageless, you see. And when he comes through me, that there is no age. there is just this energy that's pulsating that has to be given away. And that's what happens to me. So I've discovered that if the more I allow myself to be a vessel, and at the beginning, I was acting as Harold Clurman. It hadn't occurred yet to allow myself. And over time, this was a little after the year 2000, as time went on, I let that go, because acting is not about acting. It's about behaving and living as a human being, not as a character. And so as time went on, I allowed that more and more to occur in what I call the creation room. There is no such thing as a dressing room. We're not getting dressed. We're allowing creation to occur. And that as it occurs, for me, Harold Clurman comes. It happens to be usually when I'm putting on his makeup or getting into his clothing. And as he comes, my whole body changes. My molecules change. My blood changes. I can feel everything change. And all of a sudden, he's arrived. And so he is not going on a stage. He's going into his apartment to live. And that's what I also teach in my Art of Transformation workshops, because it's all about allowing creation to occur. It's all about allowing this human being who comes to live and tell his story. And as long as I'm a willing, open vessel, full of acceptance, then that happens.
Well, let's talk about the flip side of that.
Uh-huh.
And that's the experience as an audience member.
Uh-huh.
And the experience that you've had sitting in the audience of so many great artists like Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain, Pat Carroll as Gertrude Stein, which I saw, Gene Stapleton as Eleanor Roosevelt, if you saw that performance.
I did, yes.
Yes, these phenomenal performances. Tova Felchu as fill in the blank. It's like
Golda, she's pretty great.
Golda, you know, and now Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
Now she's playing Dr. Ruth.
Yes, she literally transforms herself.
That's right.
Valerie Harper as Tallulah Bankhead.
Yes.
And as Golda Meir as well. I have just been so fortunate to see so many incredible transformations over the years. And as an audience member, to sit in the audience and to see these transformations on stage, it's just an incredible experience.
It is. That's why in Solo Transformation on Stage, I have been fortunate and blessed to have people like Christopher Plummer, who I got to know as a very dear friend, and Olympia Dukakis and Ben Vereen and Billy Crudup and Eve Ensler, who now is known as V, but Hershey Felder and Angelica Page and Tony Lobianco. I mean, there's such an extraordinary array of people that are in the book who have done solo performances. But I have to say that when I saw Julie Harris and got to know her and interviewed her, because, you know, being the publisher of the Soul of the American Actor newspaper, I probably have done close to 1,500 interviews, and probably with about maybe 300 solo performers, and being able to interview people like Julie, who's in the book, and getting to see how, when Hal did his show on Broadway back in '78, and I saw it, and he invited us to come on stage, and I shook his hand at that moment, and something registered in my back of my brain at that moment, and I looked at him and took him in, and I thought to myself, now this is something that where an individual is bringing to life another individual. What if it was possible? I don't know how it could happen, if that could happen to me. So you see, it hadn't even formed in my mind that I would do at that point. But I got to meet Hal again when I saw a show in New Jersey again, and talked with him again then. And as I've talked with so many others and interviewed Tova,
Dixie Carter. I saw Dixie Carter as Maria Callas on Masterclass.
Oh, gosh.
And did you see her do Masterclass?
I saw Zoe Caldwell. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Dixie Carter with this Southern accent became Maria Callas.
Yes.
And she was amazing.
I'm sure.
God, I love her.
Yes.
But it was, I just could not believe that she was Maria Callas, but she completely transformed us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the beautiful gift about when an actor or an actress allows themselves to go there and slip into the consciousness of another human being. Everything is speaking. Their whole body is telling a story. And that's what I talk about in Solo Transformation on Stage, is how that's possible. I mean, I go back hundreds of years and talk about some of the other amazing artists who have done that before us, and up to the present time, of course, and the continuation. But, solo transformation occurs in such subtle ways. And that's the beauty when you allow moment to moment living. Someone like Laura Linney, and the performance that she just did. I mean, you see it, and it takes you where you allow your heart to give over. And that's what the theater has the power to do. And that's the powerful thing. Having some of those amazing quotes in the back of my book by Ian McKellen or a couple of the others. I interviewed Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis and got to know them. And the words that they share also are eternal and life-changing. And that's what also is part of the gift that I've tried to share through the book.
And Holland Taylor, I mean, and Richards.
Yes,
I mean, there are just so many. I just go on and on and on. And how fortunate we are that, that her performance is captured on film, that we've got that performance. And I never get tired of seeing it. Just because I loved Ann Richards to begin with. But Holland Taylor, just, epitomized who she was. I want to ask, do you recall the first time that you were completely transported in the theater by someone giving a solo performance that you said that's really what I want to do with my life?
Well, I do think it tends to go back to Julie Harris and Hal, because they were very defining forces at that moment when I saw them. I mean, seeing James Earl Jones as Paul Robeson was just, earth-shaking for me, and really captured the marrow in my bones of what this man represented. And so feeling the tonality of where, and the simplicity of where Hal went, and the and seeing, of course, Julie do the Belle of Amherst, which just sends you over the moon. I mean, I was just sitting, my whole body was, in a sense, almost vibrating, because I was taken so far, and it just spoke to me. But I have to tell you, every single day being in front of Stella was a solo performance. Every single moment being in front of Harold Clurman was the most incredible solo performance you could ever experience.
And you mentioned your father as a lawyer. I'm sure that he probably had that as well.
Well, he wanted to be an actor, and he would nudge me when he was also a critic. A drama critic. That was part of what he did, because I guess that's how I went into journalism. I never expected to write a newspaper and publish it, and found it 23 years ago. That was furthest thing from my mind. But he actually wrote a thing called the Florida and Miami Report for Leo Schul at Show Business.
Oh, my God.
Take me as a kid, and we would go to 40 or 50 shows growing up. So I would see every possible musical, Eugene O'Neill and Tennessee Williams. And I actually was taken to Studio M, which was a small little theater in Coral Gables. And Tennessee Williams actually lived in Key West, of course. And he would travel after he had written a new play up to Studio M and sit in the audience and cackle and laugh during some of the most serious moments of his new work. So I was a kid about maybe 10 or 12, and right behind me was Tennessee Williams laughing in the most serious moment. And I looked at my father, and he said, "It's okay, he wrote it." And I thought, oh my God. And you just grow up with that kind of a world, and it just led me onto this path.
Is there one that got away? Is there one performance that you truly wish that you had seen that you never saw live?
Well, I think there were some shows before I came into this world that I would have loved to have seen. And one of them was Laurence Olivier. when he was doing his two people evening. And from everything I've read about it, it was absolutely breathtaking. And of course, I would have loved to have seen him in person doing a performance like that, or doing The Entertainer. There are certain individuals, I mean, even thinking about what Ira Aldridge did as Othello and everything that I've read, it's not a solo show, but I'm sure when he was doing his monologues, those incredible words, in a sense, they were solo performances. And you know, it's those kind of performers that have always spoken to me across the ages, because they represent this height that, in a sense, we hope we can ascend to in our work. And I don't even think about that when I'm, on stage, because I, as the actor, may be on stage, but I'm not there. I'm inside Harold Clurman. So whatever he does, I go along with. That's just the way it is. So I'm hoping.
So I want to ask, I mean, two things that I know that you love to do. And one of the things that I always love to do, I love the audience interaction for myself.
Sure.
I love being able to go out and meet my audiences after a show. And of course, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. And I'm sure that that's curtailed that experience for you somewhat. How has that affected that feeling for you afterwards? And also, have you done performances where the audience is masked, and the experience of not being able to see their faces, and what that is like for you?
Well, the last performance I did before the pandemic hit was the end of February 2020. And at that point, it hadn't really happened yet. So, I mean, I was around an incredible, standing ovation, huge, resounding audience response. And there is a moment during Let It Be Art where Harold Clurman breaks the fourth wall. And he actually, you might say, uses the audience, because they become the young actors that he's talking to when he did the formation of the group theater. One of his first speeches. So he does break the fourth wall, and he looks to everyone, and they, in a sense, become all of these young actors. Well, I actually was not able to do a performance until this past summer when I went to Athens. So not doing a show for that long was incredibly challenging. And in a sense, this book, Solo Transformation on Stage, became a performance for me, because I began, in a sense, these words flowed out, and I realized there has to be a way that I can still share what needs to be said during this time. Just like Harold Clurman says in my play, Let It Be Art, you have to be given the opportunity, or to make the opportunity to act. And I was thinking, we don't have any opportunity now. So how are we going to do it? So it took a long time. And this past summer, when I was doing the Let It Be Art in Athens, I think some of the audience decided not to be masked, and some of them did mask, and that's just who they were, and that's okay. Of course, Harold Clurman was totally unmasked. Naturally, he was in 1980, so how could he be?
Right.
So he was didn't even see them as that way, naturally, because he was in 1980. But when I did come back out after the curtain call and saw them, and realized, and we of course couldn't shake hands. And we had to, wave and sort of do elbow or whatever at that point. Yes, it did change a lot of that embrace that I normally feel that is so essential for the Q&A. But this incredible feeling was still there, and it still was occurring.
Well, we are going to give away a book.
Oh.
And I'm going to tell you what we're going to do is we're going to let me make sure that this is set up right.
Uh-huh.
Once all you need to do is put in the hashtag solo transformation. And if you put in the hashtag solo transformation, everybody who puts in that hashtag will automatically be entered to win a copy of the book. And what I'm going to do, my homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio, I've got some random questions I'm going to ask you. And then at the end of this, we will hopefully have a drawing for your book.
Wow.
And the first question is, what was the worst thing about today in your mind and the best thing about today prior to coming on today's show?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Well, that's a very challenging question. I don't think about bad things other than I knew that I had to get an Ethernet cable, and I was just hoping that it would be long enough to go into the computer. And the best thing is yes, it fit.
That's good. What is the most rebellious thing that you've ever desired to do?
Well, I think it was the first time that I decided to go abroad and bring Let It Be art across the world. And I decided that, yes, I'm going to find a way. And even though I didn't have $2,000 for the ticket and for the trip, lo and behold, someone who had studied with Harold Clurman appeared because they had seen me in my show and said, yes, I will support you. And I took a leap of faith and went all the way to Tbilisi, Georgia to do my show.
Wow. Wow, that's wonderful. What period from history fascinates you the most?
I've always been fascinated in anthropology. So I would say that it's probably the 1930s. And it's all connected to the roots of man, because in the 1930s, we had to find a way to survive. And I think that's also what attracts me to the story of the survival of the group theater and how they found a way in the midst of the Depression to say, we are still going to forge a group theater, even with practically no money. And they found a way in the midst of that.
Wonderful. What part of your day-to-day life deserves or desires the most patience from you?
I think it's being between performances. I do a lot of exercises and I do a lot of preparation. I run my show a lot, but without the experience every single day of being in front of an audience, that's probably one of the most challenging things day to day for me.
Okay. And what are you up to in the next 30 minutes after we finish today's show?
Well, I have plans to actually contact some more individuals that I have lined up to let them know about solo transformation on stage.
Wonderful. What are certain things that you need to throw out of your life currently?
Well, I always am a great believer in powerful, positive energy. So I'm always on the lookout for any negative thoughts that might surround me or anything that people may say that may slip in. And so I have to be aware of this. So I always reach back into my center and keep myself full of mindfulness and understanding that that's what it takes to keep going and staying focused on what really matters in a very positive way.
Wonderful. And what is the most outstanding example of wealth that you have experienced on stage? And what I mean by that is from the experience of an outpouring of love coming from you and coming back towards you, wherever it is in the world that you've performed.
I would say that it's been amazing. I was doing a performance and I saw one of the audience members try to slip in very late after the performance had started. And of course, Harold Clurman is Harold Clurman, and he's there in his apartment. And there was a part of Ronald inside noticing this actor. And I was wondering what Harold Clurman was going to do, because he's living in his apartment. It's 1980, but he is talking and using three of the people in the audience as his students because he sees them. So all of a sudden, I saw Harold Clurman turn towards this person and say, "Come in. Are you going to come into my apartment? You're here. Why are you late? Sit down. Join us." And he was like embracing this person to join the moment.
That's incredible.
Yes.
And who is the person who has helped you the most in your career?
Well, I would have to say that the spirit of Harold Clurman continues to light a path for me, because that's how I've been doing the show for 20 years. And every time that I, step into the creation room, I do put out photos of Harold Clurman, and one in particular that I actually have with me right here. This particular one I've taken with me to every performance hundreds and hundreds of times. And that's in front of me. And I talk to Harold, and he is my guiding light and my spirit. And so I say to Harold every time before we begin, well, here we are in Eskişehir, Turkey, or here we are in Bangkok, Thailand, or here we are in Barrancabermeja, Colombia. So we're going on this path together.
Wow, that's amazing. And my last question for you tonight is, what is the most important action that you feel, and perhaps we know the answer to this already, what do you feel is the most important action that you've taken on your path in your career?
Well, I do have to think about what Stella Adler had always said to us in class, because she always emblazoned us with always returning to what it means to be a human being. She would always say, talent lies in the strongest possible choice you make. And that means right from the start of every single moment of your day. And Harold Clurman says it's up to you how you shape your daily life. So I think that it always comes down to deciding that why I'm alive is because I'm in service to others. And that's what really guides my path.
That's wonderful. Now, our giveaway tool somehow is not working tonight, so I want you to pick a number 1 through 9.
Okay.
And I will choose our winner based on that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pick the number 9.
Okay, let's see. And that will be Pam Stubbs. So Pam, you will reach out to me, and I will get your information to Ronald, and you will get an autographed copy of his book, which is phenomenal. Don't go anywhere for a moment, Ronald. I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I know that I can speak for Ronald when I say this. In the theater and anywhere else in life, we don't take it for granted when you show up. So thank you for being here tonight. If this is your first time here at Richard Skipper Celebrates, I hope that it will not be your last. Please subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment on this channel. Let us know what you think of the show. Check out the other artists that I've celebrated. We're coming up on 400 episodes. We've celebrated 400 other artists, and hopefully there will be 400 more ahead of us. Check them out. Check out what they're doing. Go out and celebrate them. I also want all of you to do me a little favor. I want you to call your favorite bookseller and ask if they have this book. If they don't, ask if they will order it, get it for you. Then I want you to order 2 copies. Order 1 copy for yourself. And then I want you to go to your Facebook friends list. And I want you to reach out to the 9th friend. And I want you to order a copy for that 9th friend. And because if they love the theater even if they're not a solo artist, even if they're not in the business themselves, they're going to love this book, because this book talks about the life of the theater. There are so many great interviews in this book that this book is for everyone. You're going to really, truly enjoy it. I truly have. And one other message that I would like to leave with all of you, reach out to that ninth friend with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private message, a phone call. Last week, I lost 3 friends in one day. And all of a sudden, I see on all of their Facebook pages an outpouring of love. People telling them how much they love them, how much they meant photographs, everything. And I thought, wouldn't that have been nice if those photographs and those messages had been posted 2 weeks prior, so that they could have seen the outpouring of love? And I think it's important that we take the time to do that every day. So that's the message that I would like to leave with all of you. My dear friend David Friedman always says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, Ronald, I'm going to leave the screen, and I'm going to leave you solo. You've got the platform to yourself. Anything that you want to say to anyone who's watching about anything that we talked about tonight that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or just any message that you want to leave everyone with tonight. Don't worry about how to end the show. As soon as you say goodbye, the closing credits will end. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll come back sometime. Thank you so much. And it's all yours, Ronald. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, Richard, for the great gift that you give the world. And it's beautiful the way you celebrate artists and celebrate your own soul in such a beautiful way. It makes such a difference in the energy, the way it fills this world. I'm a great believer in that. And I'm a great believer that we all have the opportunity each day to celebrate what's best in life and what it means to us. So the reason I wrote Solo Transformation on Stage is I wanted to say that we all can live every day in such a meaningful and beautiful way. And it's up to us to share the gift of love, to share the gift of peace every day. So I'm grateful for this moment to share and to speak to each of you, and to especially be with you, Richard, at this moment on this planet, because we are incredibly blessed every single day to live on such a beautiful planet. So thank you again. My blessings to each and every one of you, and may you go out and share the gift of love and the beauty inside of you. Thank you.